Heroes are, by and large, good people who do the right thing at any cost. But nobody's perfect, and sometimes the best intentioned good guys really just end up messing up everything for everybody. With that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, and here are 10 movie heroes who made everything worse. 10. Ray Stantz, Ghostbusters. As gloriously surreal and entertaining as the finale to Ghostbusters is, it's safe to say that the hero's showdown against the shape-shifting god of destruction Gozer would have gone far more smoothly were it not for the absent-mindedness of Ray Stantz. In the finale, Gozer demands the Ghostbusters pick the destructive form the shapeshifter will take, prompting the team to effectively empty their minds and ensure Gozer can't draw from their thoughts. Though the rest of the Ghostbusters successfully switch their brains off, Ray accidentally recalls a seemingly harmless figure from his childhood, the Stray Puffed Marshmallow Man mascot. Of course, everything worked out in the end, but Ray's inability to be a team player resulted in a ton of needless destruction, terror, death, and near obliteration. 9. Owen Grady and Claire Dearing, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. The most recent Jurassic Park movie sees returning protagonists Owen Grady and Claire Dearing fighting to rescue the dinosaurs trapped in the face of an impending volcanic eruption. Their intentions were certainly good, though their efforts ultimately just opened up a colossal can of worms, which even went on to threaten the human race itself. Granted, Owen and Claire were really just a small part of a wider effort to relocate the dinos, but they also inadvertently provided assistance to the sniveling Eli Mills, who was secretly planning to auction off the dinosaurs on the black market. This culminates in a whole host of chaos in Act 3, before Owen, Claire, and clone child Maisie end up releasing the remaining dinosaurs into the wild, setting up the upcoming Jurassic World Dominion. Again, it's not entirely their fault, but their involvement absolutely exacerbated some already shady proceedings, in turn allowing the dinosaurs to escape into the big wild world. 8. Tommy Jarvis, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. In many respects, Tommy Jarvis is actually one of the smartest and most resourceful characters in the entire Friday the 13th franchise, counted among the few people who've actually taken Jason Voorhees down. But in the 6th movie, Tommy, who has admittedly suffered severe psychological damage from his childhood run-in with Jason, decides to visit Jason's grave and dig him up, hoping that cremating his body might finally put an end to his own nightmares. This unfortunately turns out to be a huge mistake, as after impaling Jason's body with a metal fence post, a bolt of lightning strikes it, bringing Jason back to life. Some things are clearly best left alone, and despite being one of Jason's most formidable adversaries to date, unearthing a peaceful, sleeping Jason was a staggeringly stupid idea. To twist the knife even further, Tommy is canonically still alive in the franchise, despite appearing in no subsequent movies, which suggests that he's had to live with the guilt of effectively causing all the murder and the mayhem that has followed. Now that can't be good for the guy's mental health. 7. Superman, the DC Extended Universe. Where do you even begin with the depiction of Superman in the DCEU? Though Justice League has at least attempted to subtly reinvent the character as more traditionally hopeful and heroic, the Superman seen in both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman is really anything but. In the Man of Steel, some of Superman's decidedly not heroic actions include not saving his father from a violent death, making seemingly no effort to avoid an insane amount of property damage in Metropolis while battling Zod, and snapping Zod's neck. He then spent basically the entirety of Batman v Superman being a sad sack mope, committing more excessive displays of force with little regard for the consequences, and crucially, failing to hash things out with Batman, leading to a fight which could have easily been avoided. He then, sort of died and had an awkward resurrection where he then ended up beating the snot out of the Justice League. For a character who is intended to be an emblem of heroism and morality, these actions read like the clumsy behaviors of someone who has no earthly idea what they're doing. 6. DOGMA. Kevin Smith's ferociously entertaining fantasy comedy revolves around two fallen angels, Bartleby and Loki, who scheme to re-enter heaven and prove God's fallibility. Because God is supposed to be infallible, successfully proving him wrong would effectively undo everything God has ever created. Before Bartleby can complete the ritual required to re-enter heaven, he must first transubstantiate into mortal form by removing his wings, which heroic stoner Jay handily does for him by firing an entire clip of Mach 10 bullets at his wings. Jay's heart is obviously in the right place, but his misguided efforts very nearly caused the uncreation of the entire universe. The lesson here is don't give guns to idiot stoners. 5. Doc Brown, Back to the Future. As tremendously entertaining as Back to the Future movies are, they're also yet further categorical proof that time travel is objectively an awful idea in reality, damn near guaranteed to escape the clutches of its inventor. Though everything eventually worked out for the flux capacitor's creator Doc Brown and his young charge Marty McFly, the sheer fact that time travel now exists and cannot be put back in the bottle, so to speak, has horrendous implications for the world. Beyond the fact that owning the tech will make Doc a huge target, how long will it be before the government intervenes, confiscates his tech, and attempts to weaponize it? It's tough to believe that a man as scattershot and eccentric as Doc Brown would be able to put up much of a fight against the FBI, or any sufficiently motivated individuals. I mean, the guy couldn't even beat some budget terrorists in the first film. While Doc did initially seem quite committed to destroying the DeLorean due to its dangerous potential, he ultimately backtracked by building the time-traveling locomotive seen at the end of the third film, in turn leaving himself and the space-time continuum hugely vulnerable. I love you, Doc, but the power of time travel is too dangerous to be left in the hands of one kooky old scientist, or frankly, anyone. 4. Paul Kersey, Death Wish. It's probably an understatement to say that the Death Wish franchise has aged like milk over the years, beginning as a gritty revenge thriller in which architect Paul Kersey becomes a gun-toting vigilante in order to avenge his wife's murder and daughter's rape. But the sequels did slide increasingly into uneasy Republican power fantasy territory, serving as a disconcerting propaganda for America's much-cherished right to bear arms. This borders on self-parody in later sequels, when Kersey is basically setting up scenarios to invite the presence of criminals, who are all given the dehumanizing, all-encompassing label of creeps, providing him with the seemingly legal opportunity to murder them. And yet, as we all know, society's proven time and time again that just murdering people does not make things better. While Kersey's efforts to clean up the streets were largely in vain, there's an argument to be made that he also made our own reality worse, by selling the much-parroted lie to moviegoers that gunning down criminals in the streets is the best way to go. Unsurprisingly, 2018's Bruce Willis starring remake curdled before it even landed in cinemas. 3. Jar Jar Binks, Star Wars. It isn't hard to find a Star Wars fan who feels that Jar Jar Binks made George Lucas's prequel trilogy worse, though it is also fair to say that Jar Jar made the series' galaxy itself a worse place to live. Even if you refute the widely disseminated Darth Jar Jar fan theories out there, Jar Jar had a far greater impact on the overall story than simply being harmless, courtesy of granting emergency senatorial powers to Chancellor Palpatine, in turn allowing him to eventually form the Galactic Empire and ultimately oversee the deaths of trillions. Although Jar Jar isn't solely to blame, honestly the fact that he was allowed to get to a position to effect such an outcome is an outrageous failure of governance. He nevertheless took a bewildering leap from irritating hero sidekick to accidental genocide enabler in the span of a single movie. 2. Star-Lord, Avengers Infinity War. You can't talk about genocide enablers without bringing up Star-Lord, who despite being a ultra-likable superhero also committed a single act which caused the universe a ton of anguish. In Avengers Infinity War, the Avengers managed to subdue Thanos on his home planet Titan, seemingly stopping his quest to destroy half of all life in the universe. But Peter Quill screws this all up when he learns that his beloved Gamora is dead, prompting the hot-headed man-child to start hitting Thanos, in turn breaking Mantis' psychic hold over him. This then allows Thanos to break free, acquire the Time Stone, snatch the Mind Stone from Vision in Wakanda, and snap the Infinity Gauntlet's fingers, disintegrating half of all life in the universe. You can argue that this is the way things had to happen, courtesy of Doctor Strange's vision of one successful outcome, but that doesn't change the awfulness of Quill's actions in the moment. 1. Dave Bannion, The Big Heat. Fritz Lang's classic 1953 film noir follows homicide detective Dave Bannion as he boldly takes on a powerful crime syndicate which leaves an increasing pile of bodies in its wake. Though Bannion does ultimately succeed in cleaning up the city, his efforts result in the deaths of numerous people. First and foremost, his wife ends up being killed by a car bomb in retaliation for him standing up to the mob, while his daughter is also placed in mortal danger. Furthermore, numerous people who speak with Bannion end up dead by the film's end. including femme fatale gangster Debbie Marsh, then you have to consider that it's just a matter of time before this period of peace dissipates and violent crime seeps its way back into the city. Such is human nature. The fact that Bannion ends the film returning to the police force after initially resigning amid the corruption makes it abundantly clear that he's learned little about the personal cost of standing up to big crime, and is destined to repeat his reckless ways in a fundamentally broken institution. And there you have it, folks, 10 movie heroes who ultimately made everything worse. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and drop me a follow on Twitter at @YouSlyDogU. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.